Good morning. Just walking down a path here, getting ready to cut up some trees. Nice wooded path. We gotta clear this out so a customer can make it down to the lower field. So we're gonna do some chainsaw videos, a little bit of how-to, a little comparison, that kind of stuff. Nathan Cox, thanks for joining us around the home. Okay, today I'm gonna show you guys how to use your Ego chainsaw. Got one right here for you guys, okay? This is the 14-inch Ego chainsaw, but before I show you how to do this, I better talk for the next 10 minutes about what I did this week. Okay, I'm back. No, actually I did a lot of stuff, but we're going to skip that and get right ahead. So, 14-inch chainsaw, okay, they also have a 16 and an 18. Now, I'm not going to go through, so this is not a comparison video, this is how to use. But all three chainsaws are basically the same. They do claim that as you step up to the 16 and then the 18, there's a slight power difference. Now, of course, they're all the same 56 volt, they all use the same battery, but I don't know if the motors are slightly different or the gearing is slightly different. But anyways, I'm going to be demonstrating the 14-inch because that's the one that I have, okay? If you want to know how to maintain it, okay, like where does the bar oil go, how does that work, chain tension, cleaning that, the bar up, all that kind of stuff, I have a separate video for that, so it's not going to be here. This is just how to use. So top right of your screen, popping up there. Also have links in the description down below. Also have links, Amazon links, not only because they're an Ego certified seller, for this chainsaw, other chainsaws, some other equipment. I'll have those down there, but we're an Amazon affiliate, so if you use those links, help support our channel. It doesn't cost you a penny. We really appreciate it, so please click away. So let's talk about what you need to be ready. Everyone wants to say safety first, right? I don't like that whole idea, and I'm explaining to that real quick. The reason I don't like safety first is that's like some person who's considered to be certified in something telling you exactly what you shouldn't be doing. And that way you go out and you feel safe because you've done these things, like not making toast in the bathtub, stuff like that. I don't like it like that, okay? Of course I want you to be safe, but I say learn how to use the tool properly first. Safety will follow, okay? There's a difference of knowing what you're doing versus just blindly following someone else's instructions without understanding why. So I've got a hat on, and even though this hat is probably too cool for most of you guys, having some kind of hat is actually good, especially if you're working, you know, at face level at all on any branches or even a little bit above, so that it's not just being pelted with the sawdust, okay? The brim does help, whether it's a standard baseball hat or whatever. You know, some kind of actual safety glasses, so they have a little bit of wraparound feature. Don't want this crap in your eye, it's very bad. What about your hands? That's important. I recommend full leather gloves, okay? Not any of these new mesh ones or these performance ones. They're awesome, but the leather is going to give you better protection against getting an actual cut. They just are. Check this out, stylish cargo pants. Okay, don't need the cargo pants, but you need pants, okay? I've seen people, heard stories of people out with chainsaws, and they're wearing shorts, okay? Even though this material isn't going to give me a lot of protection, in case the bar catches me, it will give me just a fraction of protection, but it's also just going to keep all that stuff from just flying on me and into my shoes, which is the next thing. You should be having real shoes, not flip-flops or sandals. I don't care if they're Tevas or whatever, and you really should have full leather boots, okay? You should have something that's protecting yourself, unless you're just cutting like a 1-inch branch, you know, really quick. I mean, let's be serious here. And I know this is hot, it's summertime, I'm sweating, but be protective. So in a minute we're going to get over that tree and actually start cutting it. I'll show you how that works. But I need one more tip that I tell anyone who's newer on using a chainsaw. We had an ice storm back here in '07, and there was just people, a bad ice storm, so people went out and bought chainsaws left and right. They had to open up second ERs in both hospitals, and the lines were wrapping outside. I know because my wife worked there, and so did my neighbor. Okay, people injured themselves left and right. It's scary. The average amount of stitches from chainsaw injuries are, I think it's like 50 stitches, or I don't know. It's a lot, okay? So when you're using your chainsaw, whether you're cutting a branch up here or cutting down here, I want you to think of this as like a super sharp samurai sword, okay? Because when you're cutting through a branch, right, eventually at some point it's going to cut through the branch, right? So don't stand like this, so when you cut through the branch, and sometimes that chainsaw comes down quick, oops, my leg's right there. It's going to cut my leg. I don't know how you would get your arm in the way, but I know people have done it. But most of the time it happens with the legs. And that's because when you're cutting, As soon as the chainsaw cuts through that branch and starts to fall, your leg's in the way. So if you think of this like a samurai sword, you want to stand in the way so when it comes through the branch or the log or whatever, there's no way it hits you. See that? I can even do this one-handed. That's an expert professional skill right there that I learned after years of using it. I don't expect any of you guys, this is a beginner video, do not use this one-handed. But if I was using this one-handed because I was having to hold myself or brace myself in a spot, if this comes through, never touches me. Same if you go this way. If you're cutting through this way, make sure you're standing in the way so when it comes through, never touches you. This is so simple, but it's so freaking important to avoid that injury. Alright, now that we're through all this, let's get over to that tree. Okay, now this is probably a much bigger tree than most of you guys are going to be playing with, but it's what I've got. Okay, and there's one more safety feature we need to know about. It's this right here, okay? So when it's pulled back, the chain is unlocked and can spin, and when it's pushed forward, it locks the chain so it can't. I'll explain why. Okay, first, let's talk about how do we get it started. There's a button right here. It might be slightly different on the 16 and the 18, but on the 14 it's right here. You just push it in, and then once it's pushed in, you can pull the trigger. Okay? Now with the chainsaw right here, let me show you what this safety feature is right here, okay? So let's say you're cutting through and for whatever reason it hits something, it binds, and the chainsaw comes back at you like this. You definitely don't want this chain to hit you and cut you right through your face, right? Okay, so this is where the safety thing works. Okay, so let's say it's cutting and it kicks back. Do you see that? It applies a brake, immediately stops, it's going nowhere. So if this kicks back real hard, it can still hit you, but at least it's not spinning, right? And then to fix it, all you do is pull it back. Now at any point while we're cutting this tree, this is where an electric chainsaw and a gas chainsaw are different, and I have people on my videos comment, and this confuses you. And some people say it's got a bad battery because the saw keeps stopping and then the battery turns red right here. Now of course you could have a dead battery, but what is most likely happening for most of these people that are confused about that is you bind the chain, and just like a gas chainsaw, the chain would stop, but what would happen is the clutch would kick in so the motor could still run, but your chain would be stopped. Okay, since this is an electric motor, there's no clutch. Okay, it's just directly connected with the gearbox and the motor, so there's no clutch, so it just stops. So it has to shut the motor down to stop, and when it does so, as a safety feature, so it doesn't burn the motor up, if there's too much tension put on it, then the battery will flash red. You just got to give it a second and then you can get started again. Okay, so if that happens, pay attention to how fast you're cutting through the wood, or if the saw is being bound in the branch, and it's causing it to stop. Okay, so we're going to start off with a very basic down cut. You see these little guys right here, they're kind of like teeth. So as we start cutting, we actually push that against the log and use those to kind of grip a hold of it, and then we're just going to rotate the saw and then push the blade down. Okay, and if your chain is sharp at all, it should almost pull itself through the tree. So sometimes you got to, like, actually, depending on how soft the wood is, how fast it's cutting, you might actually have to slow it down a little bit because maybe it's cutting too fast. Okay, and actually the bigger saws have metal teeth, but this being the 14th, they just have the plastic ones. So not against the tree, we're going to turn it on. Okay, see, I'm just going straight down here, and now that I've gotten some cut into it, I can actually put the chainsaw into the tree and start the rotation process, what I'm talking about, where we're pivoting right here. You can see this little 14-inch saw is really cutting very nicely. Okay, now depending on how your tree is, if it's still standing upright or if it's fallen down like this one, you have to consider the chain binding in the tree. Okay, what I mean is this tree is on the ground there and on the ground there, so as I cut further down, it's going to push against itself up top here and end up pinching the blade in there, and then the chainsaw is going to get stuck. Okay, now if this tree wasn't sitting on both ends, if it was sitting on the ground over here and hanging off into the air on the left, or or whatever, then you could cut straight down like this, because then the weight of that tree hanging off in the air would break off at the very end and the chainsaw wouldn't get bound. So since both ends are on the ground, I should really be cutting from the bottom, which is a harder cut to do. But still, because you can't put the teeth on there to grab it, but sometimes that's what you have to do. It's a runaway log. Okay guys, seriously here, yes, different shirt, so it's a different day. I thought I had that video wrapped up, but realized I needed to show a couple more cuts. Something a little more realistic for the average homeowner, and not this giant tree, which, yes, even though that 14-inch can do it, to be honestly, for the most of that big tree, I've been using my 18-inch Husqvarna for two reasons. One, it's 18-inch, and this is like 30 inches diameter, and two, it really does eat the battery pretty strong when you're cutting something that heavy duty. So the runtime with the gas is just, it's just easier. Anyways, let's do some more realistic cuts. Okay, so this branch here is another thing I gotta cut, and this is probably more realistic thickness of what you'll be cutting, you know, and I got it kind of supported back there so it can be hanging up off the ground. So whether you have a broken branch in the yard or a branch that needs to come out of a tree, this will work the same way. Okay, and really quick here, if you guys are wondering which battery I've been using, the 14-inch does come with a 2.5. Yesterday I was using the 5.0, and today I've got my Amazon generic brand 7.5 in here. I don't know that you could fit the 10 amp in here. I don't know that you would want to. This is heavy enough as it is. But anyways, back to cutting. Alright, so let me explain to you guys what I meant by binding the chain blade, okay? So this is hanging up in the air, the weight's here at the end, right? Because this is completely off the ground. If I start at the bottom and go up, as the branch starts to bend from the weight, it'll actually pinch the blade, okay? Of course, it's always harder to cut from underneath too. So when it's hanging off into the air, we want to start from the top and just cut through. Okay, now let's revisit that again really quick. Let's pretend this isn't just a branch that's broken in the yard that we're cutting up to make smaller. Let's pretend that this is still attached to the tree. We want to trim it off. Here's a problem with just starting at the top and going down. Okay, so if this was attached to the tree still, as the branch comes down, it'll tear the bark and make the underside of what's left into the tree really ugly looking, okay, and susceptible to insects and stuff, okay. So if it's still in the tree, start from the bottom and just make a small cut, you know, just enough to go through the bark and into the branch, and then try to line it up and then restart. So when we cut it off, it doesn't take the bark and tear it down the tree now. Now it comes off super clean. Okay, so what if you have a tree that went down and you want to cut a nice stump off, okay? Chainsaw, the handle here wraps around for a reason. That way you can hold it like this, okay? And the other hand will of course be on the main handle like it normally is. And we'll just run the chainsaw straight across like so. There you go. So I hope that goes through all the basic questions on how to use your Ego chainsaw safely and effectively, okay? Other than that, I hope you guys all have a really great day. Be safe, clean those trees up, and you guys have a great one.